Hi guys, welcome to day 15 of the Elevate Profit Challenge. Halfway there now, and at the end of, let's call it the second week. So there's only a few more things that we need to do until we've got, until we're kitted out with really live, really useful data that we can start to implement within our businesses. Okay, so we're still in the setup phase, so there's nothing that is particularly reliable at the minute, but we are very, very slowly getting there. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to practice using this cash flow spreadsheet again to really make sure that we know how it works and know how to use it, and we can start extracting really relevant data out of it once we're all live and up and running. So that's going to be a couple of weeks before we're ready to start using it as kind of live data, but we're going to have a few days of practice to make sure everything's up to date and we know what we're doing with it, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so this is where we ended up from yesterday. You can see here that the budgets, the income is being split down into the relevant margins. The accounts are being tracked as to what they should reflect in your 4 bank accounts that you set out for us. And then we put in here the last date that we actually process the information. Okay, so the first thing we need to do every day, eventually this will be done every single morning, but for now we're doing them in kind of blocks and chunks, just so we're not taking up too much time doing a day at a time. We never get caught up. So we need to put the income in first. So delete the income column from the previous day. Obviously, that will set everything to 0. And then in this data that we're using, I've actually, again, copied and pasted this from another sheet, just so we're not flicking backwards and forwards between the two, and it makes things a little bit easier. So what we're going to have to do first is take the income column, which is these two here, which is 550. So it's any income in your bank account across the days that you're doing. So any money at all into the business. So pop that into there, and you'll see it will be broken down into the relevant budgets. And then we can delete those because we've dealt with them. And then what we're going to do is take these numbers here, the daily totals, and we're going to paste those across to the relevant budget pot. So the materials here, we're going to take that, copy it. We're going to go into the materials budget, and we're going to insert that into here. So what we want to do is make sure we're inserting the number only, and we're not inserting the copied formula. So we want to make sure it's just the number and not a formula in here. And the way to do that is to copy it as you normally would, but instead of pasting it as you normally would, you want to paste it as values only. So you can do that by Control-Shift-V, and that will paste the values, not the formulas. If I go, for example, if I delete that and I just Control-V like I normally would, that actually tries to insert a formula. Okay, so we don't want that. We want to Control-Shift-V, and it will give us just the numbers only. So go and do that for every single pot that you've got. I'll do this as quickly as I can. It's nice that you can see VAT there building up slowly in the background without having to put 20% aside, or without having a surprise bill at the end of the month. So if it's got 0 in there, which our profit may do, we ignore that for now. So again, not Control-Shift-V, get the values only. Tax, get that in there. We'll do that for the expenses and wages as well, to make sure that's all looking right. Excellent, so that's all there set up. So we can notice, for example, the owner's pay pot, you can see by doing it this way and getting on top of your cash flow, you can effectively see what's going to be available for you come payday if you manage to just stick to your budget. So if you're really strict with your spending and you're really controlling where your money's going, you know that this much money is going to be here for you at the end of the month, or whenever you pay yourself, weekly, 2 weeks, whatever it is. You know exactly how much you can pay yourself, and you know that that's going to be there as long as you stuck to all your budgets. Okay, so that's why these budgets and cash flows are so important, because if you stick to them, you know that there's money in this for you, which is at the end of the day, which is why we're all here. So what we need to do now is we subtract the outgoings out of the relevant pots. Okay, so now the income is distributed. You can see here it's kind of updated your banking totals there. But now what we need to do is obviously take that money that we've spent out. So take each line one at a time and subtract that from the relevant pots. If you've ever got any questions about what an outgoing relates to and what pot it should be, again, just give me a shout, as I can help with that, but it should be fairly straightforward for the majority of things. Okay, so grass, that's a material. So we go in here and we take 280 out of materials. Again, we just backwards and forwards between all of them. Okay, so fuel there. So we'll delete them as we go so we don't get confused. Fuel is 90, and that is an expense. So we take that out of there. And we go all the way across. We just got to do this for every single one. So obviously you can see it's, you know, it might be a half an hour job in the morning. It's not going to be anything too crazy, but it will take, it's not, you know, it's not automatic. You still need to go in here and do this to keep track of your budgets. But it's a really, really convenient way to track that cash flow rather than, you know, guessing effectively. So we've got fuel here. We want to put that into the expenses. Again, expenses is anything that's not a material effectively. So it's 45. Get rid of that. Plant hire. Okay, so this one we may not have come across already. So plant hire, whilst it's used on a project to complete the project, we're not going to classify it as a material. We're going to classify it as an expense, okay, because ultimately it is something that we can reduce. We can reduce the amount that we're relying on hire. Eventually, as your company grows, you can have all the machinery that you need. So we categorize any plant and tool hire as an expense because ideally that's something that we can look at reducing. Okay, interest, that's £8.90. Any sort of interest you're accruing, any sort of loan repayments, any overdrafts, you know, anything like that, any charges you get for that, that's an expense. So make sure that comes out of the expense pot. And then what are we left with? We have got a few more wages, 280. And there's a 440 underneath that as well. So we might as well put them both. Again, we are going over on the wages budget. Again, it's a generic data, so you know, it's difficult to know exactly where we're at. But there's no major issue as long as you respect that you are going over. So you need to make sure that, you know, you're using your wage outgoings sparingly. So you've got two more expenses there. Storage, 130. So if you've got any place to store your tools or machinery, that comes under an expense. So make sure that comes out. And then we've got the last one, which was, again, more interest. The dreaded interest, that's the last thing you want to be spending money on, so you don't get anything for it. So reduce that wherever you can, but that goes in as an expense for now. And then we can see that's completely live and up to date. So what we've got when we've inputted all of those, you can see here. Again, ignore the daily totals. That just helps us work out on a daily basis, but we can see here our banking totals for each account. So we can see that our own pay is building up nicely to take home at the end of the month. Our VAT bill is building up slowly, day by day in the background. And when VAT time comes, you're going to have enough in that account to pay your VAT bill, which is excellent. And your main account is obviously for all your income and the majority of your outgoing. So materials, wages, and expenses. It's all sat in there for when you need it. And in order to start using this, we'll go over this a little bit later. But in order to start using this, whenever you're looking at making a purchase or taking some money for yourself, you know exactly how much you've got available. So you're looking at purchasing something with your expenses. There we go. We've got that in the budget pot. You've got 800 quid and no more to spend. So as long as you're sticking to that and things are avoiding going into minus figures, you know that you're going to be able to access your cash when you need it the most. Which again, at the end of the day is exactly why we're here. And the last thing to do before finishing for the day is just write out the day of the transactions that you've got up to. So we did through to the 7th of January. So you might be tempted to put the 15th of January because that's today, but don't. We're going to do the 7th of January so we know exactly where we got up to, okay? And then that's it. That's all done for today. Like I said, if you've got any questions about specific expenses or specific outgoings that you need help with categorizing, I can certainly help with that. We had a good question about PAYE and CIS deductions, and we categorized them into the wage expenses, into the wages, and which is a very good question. So if you've got anything specific like that, just let me know, send me a message, and I should be able to clarify exactly where to categorize it. But until that, we're going to come back to, we'll have the weekend off, obviously. So we went back for a couple of days, and we're back again on the 18th. We're back again on the 18th for one more video, and we'll do a little bit more practice with this sheet. Okay, so we'll do probably 2 or 3 more days of old data. So data from January the 7th through to, let's say the 10th or whatever it is. We'll get as much done as we can until we're caught up and we're using day by day data. Okay, so I hope this all makes sense. Again, if you've got any questions, please let me know. But if not, we'll be back again on Monday.